Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel, and I'm once again with my usual avatar. Well, I shouldn't say usual because I only made like one or two videos with this avatar, but it's whatever. Um, we're going to be reacting to a video by hexjuice on why gacha wars will never end. I've seen a lot of bickering and fighting between communities, and I don't really think that's healthy. So let's see what this video has in store for us.
A long time ago, when I was in the depths of gacha tribalism hell, I made a video that I still think about quite often. It was called Honkai Star Rail's Community is Doomed, which was definitely not inflammatory or exaggeratory at all. And it came from a very specific moment in my time as an HSR content creator. At that point, I was about 3 months out from my very well known Dr. Ratio take, and I was super frustrated. Though this video was born from that frustration with the player base, I do think a lot of parts of it have a ton of value. I was fed up with my chat, and I did a lesson about the difference between a fact and an opinion, and it's kind of become this like ongoing joke in my community since we actually found out it was a lot harder for lots of people to tell the difference than you'd probably expect. The reason
Yeah, I think this is true. This is very true. But also because there is a fine line between when you state a fact and when you state an opinion. For example, I can say that Wuthering Waves character models are of higher quality than Genshin. And that is a fact, because I can prove it. You just have to look at them. But I cannot say that Wuthering Waves characters are better designed or better looking than Genshin's, because taste is subjective. It's like that old saying that the customer is always right in terms of taste. So I can't really say that Wuthering Waves characters are better looking than Genshin because it's a matter of taste. It's not a fact. So I should say that I prefer Wuthering Waves characters over Genshin, and not that they are better. But I can say that Wuthering Waves character models are of higher quality because that is a fact. And people seem to misunderstand that.
I'm telling you this is twofold. One is that while I like this video and a lot of the points that I made in it, my perspective has shifted quite a lot over time. The second is the obvious, which is that tweets by a few gacha content creators recently have ruffled some feathers in a way that I personally think is related to this topic. So let's get into it. This is going to be the difference between a fact and an opinion, why it matters, and how I think it is one of the biggest reasons that everyone cannot stop fighting in the gacha space. Subscribe!
Jesus fucking Christ. I've seen some of her videos and I can never get used to this. Always catches me off guard.
We'll start simple, maybe even arguably too simple, just to make sure we're on the same page. I promise though, this is going somewhere interesting. A fact is something that is known to be objectively true that can be proven via quantitative or measurable data. It is objectively true that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and it is objectively true that Genshin Impact was released on September 28th of 2020 in the US. These are facts. An opinion is a judgment that an individual creates around a particular topic that is not necessarily based upon quantitative or measurable data, but usually more so on personal preference, experience, and realistically, bias. Personally, I prefer Wuthering Waves over other gacha games. Some people prefer Zenless Zone Zero, or Genshin, or Honkai Star Rail, or
Yeah,
PTR,
doesn't
or
mean
Cookie Run
it's
Kingdom.
better.
Those are all opinions. While some people might be upset with me for simply stating my preference for Wuthering Waves, most will shrug their shoulders and think, well, fair enough. Now, what if I say Wuthering Waves is better than other gacha games, or alternatively, I think Wuthering Waves is better than other gacha games? I would expect this to ruffle a lot more feathers. But why is
Because
that?
you can't
Well,
really
that's
prove
because there
that.
is a difference between a statement of fact and a statement of opinion. When you're making a statement of opinion, you'll use connotative language that is less definitive and more based around personal values and perspectives. Conversely, you'll know you're making a statement of fact if you're using objective or denotative language, implying that what you're saying is an absolute capital T truth. The tricky part is a statement of fact does not necessarily contain an actual fact. You can state your personal opinion as if it is a fact, and that's where the problem often lies. When I say I prefer Wuthering Waves over other gacha games, that is both an opinion and a statement of opinion. When I say Wuthering Waves is better than other gacha games, that is my opinion since it can't be proved empirically, but I'm also stating it as if it is a fact. But many of us have a bad habit of saying those opinions as if they are objectively true, and that causes friction. Now we get into
A
the
lot of
problem of
friction.
most gacha community discourse. The reality is, in the process of consuming media, very few things we talk about are actually facts. 99% of everything we say about these games are just opinions.
I wouldn't say 99%, but a lot of stuff people say are just opinions stated as facts, which I think she's right here. A lot of things that people say, like, oh, Wuthering Waves combat is better than Genshin's. But you can't really prove that as fact because both games have very different combat systems. Same with comparing Wuthering Waves with Zenless Zone Zero combat. The fundamentals of the combat system in each game are very different. So you can't really compare one on one. It's like comparing Elden Ring to Minecraft combat system. It, it just doesn't work like that.
I'm going to use the Pokey Red New tweet as an example of this, mostly because it's relatively simple and because a lot of people are currently familiar with it. I want to be clear that this is in no way an attempt for me to shit on those two creators or put them down. I'm just going to use this situation as an example to illustrate what I want to talk about, since this is a topic that can really easily get into the weeds and get overly complicated without a solid anchor. So here is the statement in question. I think Zenless Zone Zero's combat is a lot better than Wuthering Waves is. Now, is this a statement of fact or a statement of opinion? It's actually trickier than you might think. Saying I think at the beginning of the
Yeah,
statement
it starts as a statement of opinion, then just ignores the I think and just try to state a fact.
obviously implies that it's an opinion, but the rest of the statement, Zenless
It's like saying, like, this is really bad, but you know what I mean? Just everything before the but, just ignore that. It's the same here. Everything before is a lot better, just ignore it. Everything that comes right here, right behind the start of the sentence, just ignore it.
Zone Zero's combat is
Because
a lot
it's
better
them
than
trying
Wuthering Waves,
to
ultimately is a
bring
statement of
down
fact
the
due to the use of definitive
hate
language.
factor.
Slapping on an I think or an in my opinion before or after a statement of fact doesn't make it not a statement of fact. This is
Yes.
because the statement is better rather than something that is clearly more of an opinionated statement, like I enjoy Zenless Zone Zero's combat better, or the combat feels more exciting to me, or something similar to that. So what's the problem with that? Why were so many people upset about this tweet? And why the hell are you even talking about this, hexjuice? The answer is because the way we talk about things matters. The framing we use to get our thoughts out into the world determines how people will respond to us. The thing about opinions is they're like assholes. Everyone has them. Facts should ultimately be uncontroversial because they're essentially agreed upon by everyone because they're experienced to be true by everyone or proven to be true by science. It's not controversial for me to say that Wuthering Waves is an open world, action-based RPG gacha game because that's a fact. It's not controversial for me to say that about Genshin Impact. It is an open world action based RPG gacha game. It's arguable, however, to say which one is the better open world action based RPG gacha game because it's not, technically speaking, a fact, even if I really like Wuthering Waves and really don't like Genshin Impact. Our opinion.
I mean, it depends. Because, sure, a lot of things that people compare both games, like combat system and stuff like that, sure, you cannot really state which one is better, but on the things that you can state as fact, like I said, character models being of higher quality in Wuthering Waves, the gacha rates being better in Wuthering Waves than Genshin is also a fact. Kuro Games being more generous than MiHoYo is also a fact. I mean, MiHoYo in Genshin. I don't know about the other games. I haven't played them for a while. But that is also a fact. And there's a bunch of other things, like exploration. Being able to explore more freely is always a good thing. Even if you don't like it, is objectively a good thing. Having more freedom is better because you can always choose not to use it. Where if you don't have the freedom to begin with, you don't really have a choice. And when you compare the things that are actually comparable, then you can objectively say that one game is better than the other. Story, pacing, and everything like that can be compared and can be stated as fact. Now, this only works for Genshin Impact because they are both open world gacha RPGs, like she said. It doesn't work for Honkai Star Rail because they are very different games. Honkai Star Rail is turn-based. It's a turn-based game and an instance-based game. Zenless is an instance-based game. So right off the bat, they are different genres, so you can't really compare them. Even if they look very similar. Since they are different genres, I don't think you can compare them. Now, you can compare Genshin to wuwa because they are the exact same genre and they follow the exact same principles. Sure, the setting and world environment may be different, but they are very similar. So, for wuwa and Genshin, I think you can compare both and state that one is better than the other. Doesn't mean that wuwa will always be better than Genshin. wuwa wasn't better than Genshin when it first came out. It is better now on 2.0 against 5.4 of Genshin. Does it mean it will always be better? Probably not. MiHoYo will probably cook something up that will blow Wuthering Waves out of the water, but until then, we can realistically say that Wuthering Waves is better than Genshin and have it be a fact.
Opinions are guided by our values and experiences. I love playing Wuthering Waves because the exploration, especially in 2.0, is a lot of fun for me. It feels dynamic and smooth and exciting. The characters have designs that I really enjoy and I love to play because the combat fits my personal preferences. And the developer, Kuro Games, listens to the community by incorporating feedback in a way that makes the game more enjoyable for me to play with every new patch.
Okay, let's see. The exploration is more dynamic, smooth, and exciting. Forget about the exciting because that's personal preference, but being more dynamic and smooth, that is a fact. And you can test it, you can prove it. So that can be said as fact. Character designs, like I said, when we talk about the designs, that is personal taste. So that is an opinion. If she said that about the character model quality, then that would be a fact. But this here, I think it's correct to state that it's an opinion. Combat is also an opinion, so I think that she's correct here. And the developers listen to the community. That is also a fact. At least they listen more than miHoYo. So we can state that as fact.
I dislike Genshin because the exploration feels clunky and frustrating, especially when stamina depletes when I'm running outside of combat. The character designs have appealed to me less and less over time as they feel repetitive and often lack a color contrast that I prefer. The elemental combat system feels too simplistic for me, and the developer rarely incorporates community feedback or does so in a way that feels unsatisfying or frustrating to me. However, these are all based on my personal preferences and personal values. I prefer exploration with more freedom of movement and character designs that are less color saturated and more mature. I personally value combat that feels like it has more skill expression and developers that consistently look to please their players. Another person just might not see it that way though. They might have completely different values or value certain things more or less than I do. Someone who really enjoys Genshin might genuinely enjoy the exploration of the game and not mind that the stamina meter depletes when they're out of combat. They might
Not minding something does not make it not worse. You know what I mean? Sure, I don't mind that Dark Souls 2 has having to upgrade my rolling frames. Like, I don't mind that. That does not mean that it's not worse. You know what I'm trying to get at? Not minding something does not mean that it's not worse. It's just that you don't mind it. It's not a deal breaker for you. So
might really value the flashiness and fun behind the elemental system or might not value combat with more complexity.
yeah, as I said, you can't really compare combat. If you prefer Genshin's combat, you are in the right to, because Wuthering Waves combat is not better than Genshin, and Genshin's combat is not better than Wuthering Waves, because they are very different.
They might have a personal preference for more colorful character designs. As far as the developers are concerned, another person might not see the need for the improvements I would want from Hoyoverse for Genshin Impact.
Again, not seeing the need for something does not mean that it doesn't matter or that it's worse. It doesn't mean that. It just means that you don't really care.
Or the lack of player feedback being incorporated might not inhibit their personal enjoyment of the game. These are also personal opinions based on personal values and preference. I might disagree with them, and they might think I have some major L takes. But none of these statements were facts. You'll notice that I continued on here to speak on Genshin Impact versus Wuthering Waves, and not Zenless Zone Zero Combat versus Wuthering.
Sorry for always pausing the video, but I think she's quite right here. It's always better to state something as an opinion than to state something as a fact, because an opinion is always right. If you state something as an opinion, you are always right. Like, oh, I prefer Genshin character models. And you are right if you prefer Genshin character models, because that's your opinion. And no one can take that from you. So if you never want to get any hate or get into any controversy or say something bad about any game, you should always state something as an opinion and never as a fact. Even if it's an actual fact and objectively true, Just to be safe, just state it as an opinion. And I think she's quite right here. If you just say everything as an opinion, then you are never wrong.
During Waves combat. There's a reason for that. The games, in my opinion, are not similar enough in their combat for the comparison to be useful or interesting. While
Yes,
they're
I
both
agree.
action-based, they're meant to appeal to totally different preferences. Wuthering Waves has very fluid combat with a lot of strategy involved. Many units can be played in a couple different ways, and teams can be constructed around them with a lot of variety. This brings a lot of skill and playstyle expression into the game. For me, it even sometimes feels close to a Souls-like, though it's obviously not exactly the same, due
I
to
feel
its
like
precise
that too.
dodge and parry timings, especially when battling holograms. Zenless Zone Zero is a lot faster with the combo switch system. It's very flashy, with big impact frames and great sound design. The parry system is much less precise, but very satisfying due to the animations and the sound cues. Stylistically, it's also very appealing. It has a relatively lower skill ceiling, but there are plenty of ways to play the units and teams with hidden combos and tech that a player can choose to engage with or almost entirely ignore. One person might actually enjoy both, simply because they fulfill totally different desires for combat in a game. And a lot of people enjoy different kinds of combat. I personally like Wuthering Waves, Elden Ring, and Cookie Run Kingdom all for their combat, all of which are very unique in their appeal. So, comparing the combat of Zenless Zone Zero and Wuthering Waves feels really silly to me. It's like apples and oranges. Maybe you think Wuthering Waves' combat is better because it has higher complexity than Zenless Zone Zero's, but that's because you personally value complex combat, just like someone might prefer the crunch and sweetness of an apple. Someone else might enjoy the flashiness and lower complexity of Zenless because it feels fun to them and they don't always enjoy more difficult combat, just like someone prefers the tanginess and juiciness of an orange. Personally, I like Wuthering Waves combat better. And I am also a big fan of oranges, but that isn't science. That's just my opinion. It's also okay to say that something isn't very good or acknowledge its flaws and still enjoy it. Love in Deep Space's combat system is not very good. I'm pretty sure that could
That thing
actually be
has
like an
combat.
objective fact, game design wise, or at least most people would probably agree with me. However, I still like the game a lot and recommend anyone who likes hot men to play it because it's fun for a lot of other reasons, and the combat can be completed almost entirely through autoplay. An example I've often given is that reality television is not exactly the most enriching media experience, but I enjoy a bit of brain rot on my second monitor when I'm clearing the
Haven't
endgame in my
watched
gacha
TV in
games,
a
or,
very
I don't
long
know,
time.
writing a script on YouTube. Is it that good? No, but it's enjoyable to me, and so I like it. A lot of people love Sharknado, even though it's considered to be a really poorly made movie. In the same
The
vein,
fuck is
something can be
Sharknado?
really well made and generally agreed upon to be good, and it's still okay for you to not enjoy it. I adore Hades, and it's generally a beloved game with excellent reviews. But that's not gonna mean shit to you if you don't like the roguelite genre, Greek mythology, or rock music. That doesn't mean that all opinions are valid or immune to criticism, though.
Oh, yeah, if you don't like the game, the thing is, if you don't like a game, that does not mean it's not good, factually. It's a fact that GTA 5 is a very good game. It's an amazing game. But I really, really, really hate GTA. I really don't like that game. I don't like the gameplay. I don't like the graphics. I don't like anything about it. But it's factually true, and I cannot say otherwise that is a good game. So you can still say that it is a fact that GTA 5 is a good game. But my personal opinion, I don't like it.
If my opinion is that all gotchas with a 50/50 should instead make it a 10/90 because I like the risk of gambling and a 50/50 isn't enough for me, maybe I should just go to a casino. Or, I don't know, get help for my gambling addiction.
Yeah, if your opinion is worst game, worst rates is fun, then that's your opinion. But it is a fact that higher rates are better for the consumer. And that is a fact, not an opinion. So it's very, very hard to distinguish between one and the other. because you can say the same thing but with opposite meanings and have it be an opinion or a fact. So you have to be very careful with what you say. And probably I've said something in this video that I should have stated as an opinion and stated as fact. That probably happened. But that just comes to show how hard it is to differentiate. And by the way, she's very good at teaching. I I wish I had an English teacher that like her. I mean, because I have not learned a single thing in my class. I mean, I haven't had English class for a really long time. I haven't been in school for a really long time. But when I was, I really wish that I had a teacher like her because she's very good at explaining things.
Many people would be concerned by that opinion because it completely spits in the face of my personal interests and the personal interests of other players. To those that value being pro-consumer, there's certainly a debate to be had about making gacha games more predatory. It doesn't benefit anyone, and therefore that opinion should be looked at critically. The same can be said if an opinion is based on misinformation. For example, if you value combat in gacha games and would never consider playing Love in Deep Space because it's bad, because it's all dry humping and no combat, newsflash, the game does actually have combat. I didn't know that nobody knew that until recently, though obviously the game is still not for everybody. The point of all of this is to say that it is okay to have opinions, but the way we frame and engage with our opinions matters. Only those with very bizarre mental states would be upset to find that Mr. Pokey or Rednu preferred the combat in Zenless Zone Zero to Wuthering Waves. Most people understand that an opinion is based around personal preferences. It can feel upsetting, however, when someone states an opinion as if it is a fact. Should it feel so genuinely upsetting to the point that people are freaking out and sending death threats to people, like in a lot of situations in Gacha?
That's crazy.
Obviously not. These are just games after all. In a perfect world, other people's opinions on Wuthering Waves or Zenless Zone Zero would be completely irrelevant to everyone. If you yourself have a hard time coping with someone disliking your favorite game, it might be time to take a break, look inward, and maybe even touch some grass. However, when we state our opinion as if it is a fact, it will create friction. Not only because people will disagree, but also because you won't have objective data to back it up. Just more of your own opinions, which just creates this cycle of endless
Exactly.
arguing.
Exactly. If you state a fact, like I have in this video, you need to have data to back you up. You need to have proof that what you're saying is an actual fact. Because if I come here swinging saying Genshin Impact's combat is much better than Wuthering Waves, and someone asks me why, and I just say, well, because I think it is. That cannot be proven factually. Just because you like it doesn't mean it's a fact. But for example, as the example I said earlier, where character models, not designs, attention, character models are better in Wuthering Waves, and I can prove it to you. I can pull up a character in Wuthering Waves and a character model in Genshin Impact, and you just look at them, and the quality of the model will be better in Wuthering Waves, and you cannot refuse that. Now, you might prefer the design of Genshin Impact, and that's totally fair. But the quality itself, Wuthering Waves design, I think Genshin's design is very good. They are very appealing, they look very nice, but the models themselves hold them back. Imagine character designs from Genshin Impact with the models of Wuthering Waves. That would be amazing. It's very hard. It's very hard. The line is very thin between fact and opinion.
also creates an environment where everyone is constantly trying to prove themselves right when it's really just a bunch of random people yapping about their personal preferences, especially in this particular case. It's fantastic to debate about your values, ask questions, be critical, and talk about your interests with others. It's actually one of my favorite things. I love being loud and opinionated on the internet. What I've realized more and more is that if I want to be heard, I have to understand that not everyone values the same things as me. I have very strong beliefs about the predatory practices of Hoyoverse and a lot of gacha developers in general, but no one will listen to me if I make them feel stupid for not agreeing with me or not understanding my position
Yes,
without explaining
I
it to
agree.
them. Maybe this should be common sense, but I've realized how much I've missed the mark on this in a lot of my older content. This is also something I think many gacha content creators, gacha game players, and people in general fail to keep in mind. The point is to debate about ideas, acknowledge the good and bad in these games, and have an open market to speak our opinions on the internet. When we state our opinions as if they are objectively true, we cut off the ability to really engage with others' opinions and for them to genuinely engage with ours. Now, if you want to keep stating your opinions as facts, go for it. The internet thrives off of that kind of divisiveness, and it'll certainly get you a lot of engagement on Twitter. Life is hard, and the world is chaotic, and really anyone who gets that mad over your opinion kind of has their own shit to worry about, especially when it's about gacha games. However, if you're like me and struggle to understand why it feels like sometimes no one will ever hear you out, even if you're trying to be reasonable, maybe try to slow down. Consider how you would like others to engage with your statement and go from there. Your delivery and framing will affect how people will respond to you. If you want a massive divisive reaction based on people's feelings around gacha tribalism, there's plenty of examples on my channel you can look at if you don't mind getting the hate. If you want people to have the chance to hear you and see your side, even if they don't end up agreeing with you, state your opinions as opinions. Give your reasoning for why you feel that way so others can understand, and consider not spending so much time on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment.
Yeah, the best course of action is to state everything as an opinion and never state anything as a fact, because it's very hard to differentiate between the two, because it's a very fine line. So if you misstep one bit, people are going to jump you, and that's kind of sad, because I don't know why the gacha community is like this. They just can't take any criticism. Sure, some people might state some facts that should have been opinions, but it's no reason to get mad over it. And I think she's completely right. She has a strong point. This was a very good video. I really liked it, and I think she's pretty based. And that's about it. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. If you agree with my take on it, then leave a like. Also, go to her channel. I doubt anyone will go from my channel to her. It will probably be the other way around. People will see that I'm reacting to her and come here. But whatever. I hope you liked it. Leave a like if you like, comment down below, and have fun. Bye bye.